Hello, family. My name is Wayne, and I'm an addict. Gratefully recovering today. That's real important, and especially in light of today's workshop's title, which is, it doesn't matter what got you here, but what keeps you here. And that's a real good topic for me, especially because I have so much experience in what got me here. I probably got 25 years of active addiction, maybe 26, 27, 28, I'm not real sure. But, I have 8 years clean. Okay, and that is such a gift. That is such a wonderful blessing. Compared to the time I spent out there in the trenches, it's just a drop in the bucket. And what I know about staying clean, I learned in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. I'm not confused about that. Everything I know about stopping and staying stopped, I learned in these rooms. I went to several treatments. By several, I mean 5, maybe 6, maybe 7, maybe 8. But not real sure on that. But what I do know is that my time out, and Salam, you talked about it last night in your experience, my time out got shorter and shorter. My time in between treatments got shorter and shorter and shorter. My first one, I went 30 days. The next year, I went back for 30 more days. And the next year, I went back in 6 months. And the next year, I went back in 4 months. And then it was every 3 months. The disease, the progression that we talked about, talking about the disease of addiction is progressive, incurable, and fatal. That was the process of progression in my life. Those whoopings was getting closer and closer, and they were getting harder and harder. I've heard around here people talk about graduating from the 25-cent ass-kicking machine to the dollar ass-kicking machine, and that's what I was doing. I need to talk a little bit more about what got me here in order to qualify myself, to let you all know that, I fit this program. And that this program, I'm not just here by mistake. I'm not here because I bought too many Girl Scout cookies, or although I do love chocolate, I ain't here because I ate too much chocolate, My problem started with drugs, and I do believe that this disease has many facets, and that I have transferred obsessions in many areas, but I maybe will get a chance to talk about that later. To begin with, I need to say I'm here because of drugs, and my choice of drug was not important. It started out, I had a drug called Try This. Okay. My friends, that's what they said. They, we hung out, started with the drug tobacco. They said, try this. And I said, I'm never going to smoke them stinking cigarettes. But my friends, it was more important for me to... Well, I'm telling my story, the people that still smoke tobacco, that's on them. I know tobacco made me feel different. And it kind of opened the door to, this ain't so bad. I get a little 5-minute lift off these things. And it wasn't too much longer before they were giving me a glass, telling me, try this. And I said, well, the cigarette thing wasn't so bad, so let me try this stuff in the glass. And I tried that. And it was fun at first. I have to be honest, Usually it was fun for me at first. Whether it was the alcohol, the cigarettes, or whatever, I wouldn't have kept doing it if I didn't get something from it. Real simple. And I need to say that the next thing they told me to try was the cigarettes that you roll up yourself, the marijuana, and I used to get the giggles and eat up a whole bunch of stuff and thought I was having the time of my life. At first, I had fun with that. I can remember the first year or two smoking that marijuana. I thought that I would be smoking that stuff to the day I died, and I had no problem with that. I thought it was the best thing since fried ice cream. But we talking about the progression. The progression said, why should I keep buying this stuff when I can buy a batch of it and sell it and I don't have to pay for mine? And so that's what I did. Meanwhile, I forgot that on the other hand of my life, I always loved to read. My family always valued education. I always got A's and B's. Well, back then we called them E's and G's. So I'm a dinosaur, that's right. but back then I valued going to school, and I wanted to be, I don't know what I wanted to be, but I wanted to be something. Doctor, lawyer, Indian chief. I certainly didn't want to be a pothead. And what happened was my aspirations that I had for going to college one day, well, first getting out of high school, all that stuff went downhill. And in my 4th year of high school, I looked up and I had freshman credits, and they were calling my mother in there and they were saying, look, your son just basically don't come to school half the time. We understand he's kicking it with his friends. They getting a 40 ounce and a bag of that weed and going listening to music all day. So let's stop wasting our time and his and put him out of school, and maybe when he decides he wants to come to school and take it serious, he can come back or he can go somewhere else. And that's what happened. So early on I found out that I was paying a price for my association with drugs. Remembering one of the early times that I drank alcohol, military ball or some fancy occasion similar to a prom, I remember taking my date to the after party and waking up the next morning, no date, no nothing, not remembering too much of anything except I was soaked from head to toe. And I asked my friend, why did y'all throw that water on me? They like, we ain't throwed nothing on you. So I still don't know how I got wet. I can only assume. And it was nothing nice. But the basic text talks about, that control, the idea of control was ridiculous, really, the moment it was suggested. And I knew right away that I had a problem. But was I willing to do anything about it? Was I able to do anything about it? Not at that point in my life. I still thought I was having fun. We fast forward to maybe, I don't know how many years later, but one of my very best friends got killed by another dear friend of mine, because we had a house selling drugs and all of that, and it was just a mess. Before that, my kid's mother got killed, and again, it was heavily about people getting high and staying high and not knowing how to cope. A bunch of young folks trying to be grown, and somebody saying something to somebody else and somebody jumping on somebody else, and the whole thing escalating to a mess. Even I wound up going to jail for murder. A friend of mine in this same dope house tried to play with a gun, and it went off. And he got killed accidentally, and I was charged with the murder. I stayed in jail for 30 days not knowing if I was going to ever get out, if I was going to go to the chair or whatever. Did any of that stuff stop me from using? No. Okay. So here I am, 19 or 20. I worked a job. I wound up being blessed to go to a community college. A lot of people in my life saw some potential in me, and a lot of people in my life were pulling for me to do something with my life. And I wound up getting an opportunity to go to a community college on a scholarship. And it was about that time that my daughter was conceived. And I went to this 2-year college for 3 years. And my last semester they said, listen, you one of the people around here that are trying to do your work and what have you. We've given you an opportunity to shine, but we also know you head to the bathroom or the park or to the whatever spot whenever there's a chance. And when you leave those spots, it's this strong smell like burning bushes in the air. So you got one chance. This is your last semester. You're either going to leave out the front door or you leaving out the back. And the choice is yours. And I managed to leave out the front door, and I got a little associate degree, and I started working a series of jobs in social service. I'm going to go back a little bit. I like to try to preface what I share with something from the basic text, so it's not just all my stuff. And one of the things I need to say to help qualify why I'm here and what I'm here about, the topic is, it doesn't matter what got you here, but what keeps you here. And I was reading a little bit in the text, and I found out in What is the Narcotics Anonymous program, it mentions that comparison, and it says, we are not interested in what or how much you use or who your connections were, what you have done in the past, how much or how little you have, but only in what you want to do about your problem and how we can help. So to me, that's verification that this program is working on that principle, that we really don't care about the name of the drug and who the connections were or none of that other stuff. I found out that this disease is a disease of feelings. And even in active addiction, I started noticing that there were certain things that this instant gratification that I was looking for helped me not to face who I was. And I found out that, well, during the time, I'm not going to say that I knew these things, but as I started trying to recover, I found out later on that I was running from feelings, that I was involved in the triangle of self-obsession, that I was quickly becoming somebody because of the experiences that I had in life. I was stuck on poor me, why me, big time. I found out that the core of the disease of addiction was real heavy in my life, that my self-centeredness was what was running me, and it was all about me, man's more, just give me man, and I put my needs first in a lot of ways. I rationalized the outrageous nonsense that I was making of my life. Self-centeredness had me very rebellious. I did just what it would take to get by, and that was it. As I started going in and out of these treatment programs, I would ask the counselors, what is it that's wrong with me? Why I can't stay clean, why I can't stop and stay stopped. The very first treatment I went into, there was another guy in the facility, and the staff, as you sit in group, they introduced this guy, or he introduced himself, and he disclosed that he was there for his 4th or 5th time, and I just busted out laughing. I thought this was so funny that he was here for a 4th or 5th time, because in my naivety, I'm sitting there my first day, I'm thinking, you come in this place, they give you the magic formula, they give you the information, you cure it and you leave, and you don't ever get high again. I had no idea until it was my 4th or 5th time. Just how hard to struggle with this disease. Just how difficult it is to stop and stay stopped. And of course, the counseling staff took me over to the side and told me, look, we giving this guy a lot of support because he's still trying. And maybe one day you'll understand. And I just didn't know how true that was. One day I did understand in spades. What got me here, is I know it's similar to most of you all's story. Like I said, to me it was about feelings, not wanting to feel them. What used to be a fun little diversion got to be my main coping mechanism. We had a workshop earlier about coping, not coping. I had threw everything else out the window as far as coping. And now my coping skill was pouring another drug on top of another one on top of another one, just so I didn't have to take a look at who I was. I didn't have to feel no unpleasant feelings. While I was asking those counselors what was wrong with me, and I started trying to figure out why I used to begin with. I had got it stuck in my head that I wasn't going to be able to stop until I figured out what made me start. Real dangerous. If I'd have only known, to look in the basic text and read a little bit of our literature and understood that the stopping got to come first. You know, that you just don't pick up the next one is how you stop and stay stopped. Just don't pick up the first one. I couldn't keep it that simple at that time in my life. I had to complicate it. I had to go look in some psychology textbooks and find some gurus and all that other stuff. I wasn't ready to hear something that was that basic. And I would talk to the counselors, and this one counselor told me that maybe you just haven't had enough pain yet. And I was kind of insulted when she said that, but as I kept going in and out of treatments, I found out that part of what she was saying had some truth to it. That I hadn't hurt bad enough yet, that I hadn't had enough pain yet, that somewhere I had those reservations that I could let go of drug A, B, and C and still use drug D. You know, I wanted to go back to that time when it was fun, that comfort level. So I said, well, this drug over here, these are the hard drugs. I ain't going to do them, but I'm going to still do this. And of course, that didn't work. You know, once I crossed that line into active addiction, then I wasn't going to be able to use anything successfully. But it was 2 or 3 more treatments down the line before I started asking myself, could it be the drugs? Could it be all drugs, not just the ones that are identified by the FDA and the public as health risks? But, you know, me trying to minimize and use this one and this one, but not that one, I found out through my own personal experience that it wasn't working for me. That anything I took, I've heard an analogy around here about using anything is changing seats on the Titanic. You know, that whatever I use, it's going to take me straight to the bottom no matter what, no matter how long it takes, you know, because of the progression, because of a lot of things in my character. Me having the disease of addiction is going to always end up jails, institution, dereliction, and death. I want to talk a little bit about the dereliction too, because we seem to leave that out, you know, when we recite jails, institution, and death. Dereliction is what has me here. Dereliction means turning your back on yourself, basically. Turning your back on yourself. And that means not washing up, not brushing your teeth, not paying rent nowhere, not putting anything ahead of the drugs. For me, that was the reason I was a derelict. 100% to keep using. I told you I had the little 2-year degree. I could not work toward the end of the road. I had a job of 9 years that I got fired from because, I mean, they were beginning to notice I was high every day. And I'm working with people. I'm trying to help counsel people, not in addiction, but a similar field. And they were like, look, you do good work, but you got to go take care of your problem. And the choice I made was to get fired. Well, it wasn't a choice. I was at the progression of I went into a couple of treatments, came right back out and used, and eventually lost my job. My downward spiral continued, and the way it affected my family. My daughter's here right now, and I'm very happy that she's here because she can help keep me honest. And I think she maybe needs to hear that, you know, I acknowledge some of the stuff that I did in active addiction. You know, so I wasn't taking care of her and her brother that well. You know, I was in and out of my mother's house, and I was more like the third grandchild most of the time because all I wanted was some more money. You know, if I went to the store, I had to keep the change. If I had a little piece of car, I'd come in the house and want $5 for gas every time I drove around the block. You know, or if I went 2 days without asking for $5, on the third day I came in and said, I got a flat tire, can I have 10? You know, so real dependent on the family, real draining on the family. And part of what helped me get clean, and I'm really happy about this. I know I've heard in various treatment centers and stuff they talk about it's a selfish program. Well, not for me. Our basic text says this is a selfless program. And the fact that I could think about somebody else was the beginning of me caring enough to get some help for me. The fact that I didn't like the way my mother looked at me and my daughter looked at me, and how my son, his friends was talking about your daddy's a height. Okay, that affected me. That helped me take this thing seriously that I needed to go find some help somewhere. You know, and that was a big part of my bottom. I went to treatment in East Chicago, Indiana 3 times. I had moved by that time and I was staying in East Chicago because things were just so pitiful for me that I felt like if I did the geographical change, it might help. So I stayed in East Chicago for about 3 years. And I went to Tri-City Mental Health Center. Any Tri-City alumni, raise your hand. All right. And then I went to the men's residential in Gary, Indiana. And I stayed there for, they had a minimum stay of 3 months, 90 days. I stayed there about 120 days. And I came out and I started making meetings on a regular basis. I did my 90 and 90. I moved back to the south suburbs, and I haven't used since. You know, I finally was sick and tired of being sick and tired. You know, I finally had enough. And I decided to give myself a chance. Members came and got me from that men's residential facility and took me to meetings around Gary, and I got familiar with the fellowship in Gary. A real close group of brothers and sisters, recovering people that would do anything for me that they possibly could have done. And I had positive experiences with members in NA, but I just didn't give myself a chance. One of my first positive experiences in this fellowship was a guy named John that took me home from a meeting in Chicago, and we sat in his car and listened to recovery tapes for about an hour. And that let me know that this dude, I mean, he didn't have to invest that kind of time in me, and he just talked to me for about an hour about recovery. And that's really meaningful to me, that he didn't just let me walk out the meeting and go home like I usually did. You know, only other people I knew was using, practicing addicts, you know. And finally, I was getting to meet some people in the rooms that I could talk to and identify with. That helps. For you older members, you know, I like to say that it's important that we reach out to newcomers. I try to do that whenever I can. And it's more fulfilling for me. I don't know if they get anything out of it, but me knowing that you know, I might be helping somebody to stay around, to not leave there thinking all this stuff don't work. You know, I'm going home by myself, and these people are all clicking together. They all know each other, and it's something different about me. You know, I don't want anybody to ever. They say when we isolate, we make differences like that, addicts die, and I believe that. If we don't reach out, addicts die. Some of the self-centered things that had kept me out there using, like denial that I had a problem, and minimizing that I had a problem, refusing to get help when it was offered, rationalizing stuff, and my rebelliousness, some of that stuff started falling to the wayside when I was in treatment. I was beat up real bad, you know, and I mean, even physically. I had some guys, young boys in East Chicago, jump on me and probably would have killed me. You know, they thought that I dropped a dime on them and told the cops, you know, whatever they told them. Nobody had to tell them. They was right there on the street, wheeling and dealing like it was legal. You know, the cops was sitting a block away watching them. But every week or two, they decided to jump on some dope fiend and say, you informing on us. And finally, it was my turn. You know, I thank God that happened, though, because it let me know, you know, just how crazy things had gotten in my life. Another thing that helped me surrender was the fact that I was getting suicidal. I was smoking rocks, and when the last rock was gone, and they said, well, see you. You know, you ain't got to go home, but you got to get the hell out of here. You know, I was homeless at that point. All my worldly possessions was in a hefty bag. You know, I was staying with a friend, and he decided one day to break into an abandoned apartment of the landlords. And we sold a ladder or something, you know. By this time, I was dumpster diving. For any of you all that don't know, that means after McDonald's closed or after Burger King closed, you go behind the store, you dive in the dumpster, your feet are sticking out, and you get whatever they've tossed out, and that's dinner. So at this point in my life, I was dumpster diving, and it was much more important for me to get high than it was to eat. I ain't confused about that. I had a po folks card. For those of you all who don't know what that is, if you go to them food pantries every day and they get tired of seeing your face every time, they say, here's this card. This card, we stamp it, means you can't come back for another week. And I had the card. For another pantry I'd go to on another day of the week on the other side of town, I had another po folks card for that spot. They would stamp it, and I could go over here one day, 1 week, over there one day, 1 week, and standing in soup lines. You know, I'm talking about dereliction, family. That's how I lived. I even got a job as a sewer sucker. These vacuum trucks that you might see on the street. I was down there, they had these long holes that they put down in the sewers. And somebody got to be down there shoveling while the hose is sucking. That was me. I had on one of them vinyl suits with the big, tall boots. And I was down there shoveling. And I kept that job for probably a month or two. But after a while, I was stealing all the rubber gloves I could get my hands on and all the duct tape. We had duct tape this tall, you know, but you can only get $1 a roll for duct tape. So, you know, even if I stuffed all my pockets and the vinyl suit with duct tape, by the end of the day, all I could get was 1 or 2 rocks. So that wasn't coming quick enough. So I wound up losing that job. You know, I hate to tell people that I got fired from a job shoveling shit, but it's true. So I don't think my bottom could have gotten much lower except for the death part. I had the jails. I went to jail for, oh man. Here I am. I've never been able to run that much. I've always been kind of healthy. Here I was going up in stores, snatching whatever was closest to the door, trying to run. You know, totally insane, and I'm just giving you the clean version of the stupid stuff I was doing, you know, but totally insane, out of my mind. And you know, finally I went for some help. I went to the men's residential Salvation Army in Gary, Indiana, and I finally got some help. We're gonna move on. I think that I've qualified myself, that I'm not here by accident. I think some of you all can relate to some of the stuff I've gone through. And what keeps me here, real important, and it's real simple too. I got some tools today. Some of the tools I have, it starts with this program called Narcotics Anonymous. It starts with making meetings on a regular basis. Since I've gotten clean, they said do a 90 and 90. I did about 180 and 90. I didn't have nothing else to do. I wasn't working. I wasn't even employable. So it was great for me to make 2 meetings a day. You know, that was such a blessing. And by then, I was so plugged into the people that were recovering, that wanted to help me in my recovery. The therapeutic addict of one addict helping another is really without parallel. And I was meeting some heck of a folks, most of whom are still in my life today, you know, 8 years later. Since I've gotten clean, there's not been one time that I haven't made at least 1 meeting a week, because this recovery process is my life. I know that if I don't make recovery a priority for me, everything else I gain in other areas is going to go for nothing. I'm convinced of that. You know, meeting makers make it, however you want to put that. I believe in that. Sponsorship, can't say enough about it. You know, I have a person sponsoring me, my first sponsor, this time around, because I had one once before that I didn't use, you know, and so I don't really count that because I didn't stop using. But this time around, I've been clean for 8 years. This guy has been my sponsor for 7 years. And, you know, it's a two-way street. I've gone through some experiences with him. He's gone through some experiences with me. But it started out with me wanting somebody to help me learn how to work the steps. Somebody, I heard him share, and I said I can identify with him. You know, hopefully he can help me learn how to work the steps. And that's how we went at it. In our literature, it says sponsorship can turn into a friendship, and that's what has happened, you know. And I have a large family of other people in my network. I have some other guys that he sponsors that I share with on a regular basis, and then I also have some friends in recovery. Many friends from different meetings that I've made, you know, conventions I've gone to, or just run into since I've been clean. And those people are a big part of my life. My recovery family is huge. And just to share on that, there's a meeting in Chicago on the west side. There's a facility called Unidos dos Fin. That means just for today in Spanish. No, I'm sorry. That means United We Stand in Spanish. Solo por hoy is the name of the Just for Today book in Spanish. But in either case, I learned this little stuff. That's all the Spanish I know. But I learned this stuff by going over there to their little recovery house and enjoying meetings over there. And they have black members and white members, but mostly Hispanic members. And they have meetings in English and Spanish. And it's just such a joy for me. I saw somebody around here earlier today that said, smile I can understand in any language. And for me, that is so profound. You know, I get over there and those people have a different spin on recovery, but the spirit is the same. The joy of recovery is the same. That hug is the same in any language. My wife and I went to Paris, France, and you know, even though they have a small fellowship over there, they threw a heck of a convention. Was that 95? In 95. And you couldn't have told me back in 92 when I got clean that I was going to be able to go to Paris 3 years later. I had never been able to get off of 35th Street, 47th Street, you know. I couldn't go farther than a four block area because I was like, where am I going to cop, you know? So this program has just really opened all kind of doors for me. I worked on the World Convention in 93. It came to Chicago. It was called The Sky's the Limit. And that's what helped open my eyes. I worked on the programming committee for that whole year prior to that. And I was fairly new. I might have had 6 months when I decided to get on that committee, or maybe a year. But it was such a blessing, you know, to actually do service in Narcotics Anonymous and actually meet people from all over the country. Today I have the guy that sponsors my sponsor lives in New Jersey. And every 6 months or so, 3 months, right. 3 months he has a men's group, you know, a study group. And I've gone to that a couple of times. And there are addicts from all over the East Coast that I've met as a result going there. And there was addicts come all the way from Scotland for that group. You know, we got to fellowship with that guy. That just goes to show you how important this thing is, how worldwide this thing is to people. While I was there, I met a couple of addicts from Manchester, England. We had breakfast with those guys and went running through Harlem with them and stuff. And just really, I can't begin to say how big this recovery thing is and how broad your base can be, or my base has gotten as a result of me just coming around here making meetings on a regular basis and being a part of this. Not sitting back in the last row and leaving as soon as the meeting is over. And that's no offense to you people in the last row. But I'm just saying, if it was up to me, I know early on in recovery, I didn't feel a part of, and I didn't do anything to make myself a part of. And today I know that I can't be just on the fringes of this thing. I have to be all the way involved if I'm going to get the benefits. Some of the other tools I have are steps. And as much as I dreaded the steps and still kind of lazy about working them, I have to get honest. I have done some work in the steps. I particularly drug my feet around the dreaded 4th and 5th step because I didn't want to take a look at who Wayne was. I thought that monster in the closet was going to devour me. You know, and it took my sponsor being real loving and caring to guide me to that point and saying, look, man, we already know what a big creep you are. You might as well write it down and come talk about it, you know. And so I did that, you know. that reassured me. So the steps are very important, and so is our literature. And I can't begin to tell you, this basic text has saved my life. Every time I read it, every time I read a paragraph, I get something else from it. Something else from it jumps out at me. Something else is more important that I missed the last time. In my book, I got a lot of highlighting in it and underlining in it and so forth. But I've seen some other folks' books, what I would call the basic text scholars and all of them, where, I mean, it's probably 10 times heavier than mine because of all the highlighting and the post-its and stuff in there, you know. So I know that I can get what I need out of here, you know. I have to thank this fellowship, too, for making me aware that there was a God of my own understanding somewhere and that he was loving and caring. That was a suggestion, you know, that I had a right to a God of my own understanding without any catches. But the suggestion was that this higher power would be loving and caring. And this program helped me find a spiritual path of my own. You know, I have to be real careful to honor our traditions. I don't share with nobody, you know, nothing about my higher power or anything like that. I do want to keep those things separate. But the point is that this program allowed me to go along spiritual lines, and that I now have a spiritual experience in my life, not just spiritual theory, you know. The literature, other addicts, all of that stuff just adds to my recovery and helps me grow and helps me change. Some of the problems that I have, I'm going to have to the day I die. The obsession and the compulsion, I understand, aren't going anywhere. You know, they just transfer. As I mentioned earlier, you know, the stomach here, you know, the donut deal, or whatever you want to call it, my disease is transferring to food. Some days it transfers to shopping. Some days it transfers to work. You know, me not knowing how to rest, me feeling like I gotta stay busy at all costs. I don't know what to do with free time, you know. Same obsession, same compulsion. But today I know that it exists. I'm not in denial about it. And most of the time I can transfer it to something positive. Or at least if I'm transferring it to something negative, I'm able to spot that. Or I have people in my life, including my wife. I don't want to break her anonymity. I do need to share that I met my wife in these rooms. You know, and that we've been happily married for almost 3 years. Okay. But we've been together for more than 5 years. We've been together for 7 years now. Okay. So no, she knows me, and she knows my memory's not the best. But the point is that I love her. I know she loves me, and people in the rooms, you know, need to know that relationships with other addicts can work. I ain't saying it's easy. I wouldn't sit here and lie and tell you that it's easy. You know, I'm self-centered as so is she. So a lot of times the compromise, I mean, we're so much alike that it gets hard. Who's gonna blink first? You know, that's the bottom line. But big part of my recovery. And yeah, I don't like it when she wants me to do a mini fifth step with her, or she wants to take my inventory, or I want to take hers, and she takes the mirror and say, aha. You know? So, but it's a big part of my recovery. I don't want to start babbling if I haven't already. So, I want to share one thing, and then I'm gonna let it go. Like I said, this recovery thing has been such an adventure. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I'm going to read one thing from More Will Be Revealed. It says, in recovery, our ideas of fun change. We are now free to enjoy the simple things in life, like fellowship and living in harmony with nature. We now have become free to develop a new understanding of life. As we look back, we are grateful for our new life. It is so unlike the events that brought us here. While using, we thought that we had fun and that non-users were deprived of it. Spirituality enables us to live life to its fullest, feeling grateful for who we are and for what we have done in life. Since the beginning of our recovery, we have found that joy doesn't come from material things, but from within ourselves. We find that when we lose self-obsession, we are able to understand what it means to be happy, joyous, and free. My name is Wayne. I'll keep coming back. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Wayne, for sharing with us. We've got about a half an hour. We were supposed to have another speaker, but unfortunately they couldn't be with us. If there's any after comments, feel free to come up and share.
My name's Rick. I'm an addict. It's not about what got me here. Although one of the things that keeps me here is trying to remember what was going on between my ears the 24 hours before I got to my first Narcotics Anonymous meeting. If I get too far away from that, then all the other things that keep me coming back not going to matter. And those things have gotten kind of important to me recently, you know. Things like watching that guy that I was not too long ago come in and sit down in the meeting the first time, you know, and whatever it was that got him back to his second meeting, you know, and watching the light come back in their eyes, you know, and seeing it, you know, work in other addicts' lives. Because when I first came around, I had to do this whole thing on trust, you know, and then I learned a little bit of how to take it on faith. But to see that faith and power every day that I go to a meeting is one of the reasons why I keep coming back. Being able to come to functions, conventions and retreats and campouts, and meet people that I've been separated from by hundreds of miles and hundreds of days, and whether I've met them before or not, being able to walk up to them and hug them and say, "Hello, friend, I'm very happy for you to be here." That keeps me coming back. Watching people that have journeyed along with me as they go through life, and having the ability to learn from the example that they lead for me in dealing with life on life's terms in recovery, that keeps me coming back. You know, my sponsor, who with 19 years clean wouldn't stand up at a clean time countdown, wouldn't even be in the room if he knew it was coming up. Through the last year, showing me by example I didn't have to use when life dealt me life. Through the suicide of a sponsee, who's my sponsee brother, after 17 years clean, through the direct result of the disease of addiction, through the separation of a marriage that he'd been in for 27 years, and some of the ancillary chaos that presented him, his teenage daughter running away for a little while. And what he did showed me by example I don't have to pick up just for today. And what he did were those things that you told me to do in the first 30 days. You know, he went to a meeting a day for a period of time. He got phone numbers and he used them. You know, he renewed relationships that had laid dormant for years in recovery. And he worked the steps with his sponsor. And it's those types of examples that I need in my life and that keep me coming back. Listening to leads of people from all over the world, no matter who or where or what, with that common background, because deep inside me I know that where I was between my ears and the 24 hours before I got to my first meeting, that person has been there. And to hear how they have journeyed through life just for today in recovery, that keeps me coming back. I love you all. Thanks for being here for me. That's all I have.
Hi, follow me. I'm a Grateful addict called Derek. I'm sitting here listening to Wayne and Rick as well, and I was reminded of why are we here in our readings. It says, before coming to NA, we could not manage our own lives. We didn't know how to live. Other people did. And we used drugs because we felt something, you know, and I felt all my life, but I didn't understand what I felt. And eventually that became painful, confusing. I was ridden with guilt and shame for some of the things that I did because I didn't know why I did them, because I didn't understand how I was feeling. Drugs covered that pain up. And then later on it goes on to say, after coming to NA, we realized we were sick people. That's what keeps me coming back. I am still sick. I'm not going to get fixed today. I'm going to get better today. But I need to keep coming back so that I can continue to grow. Because this disease is progressive and fatal. The relationship that I've developed with my higher power isn't over yet. In fact, I think it's just beginning. And I'm very ingrained in it today. The relationship that I have with people that I know, and I love the people that are very close to me, and I love everybody in this fellowship. I was at a meeting several weeks ago, and this virtual newcomer, or at least she was to me, I thought, was talking about why we need to go to First Step meetings, because we need to hear that. You know, because I forget sometimes that I'm powerless over my addiction. I forget sometimes how unmanageable my life becomes unless I come here and let you remind me. There was a couple other things that I had thought of when I was listening to Wayne speak. I thought he covered a lot of things, but the one thing that keeps me coming back today is you guys. Because I can't do this by myself. I've tried, and I've made a mess of it, and because you guys love me, you have helped me pick the pieces back up and put my life back together, and have said it's going to be okay. You know, it's okay to be human, it's okay to err, it's okay to make mistakes, you know, because when you make yours, I'm going to do the same thing for you. And if I'm not here, I can't do that. That's what keeps me here. Thanks.
Almost kissed you. My name is John. I'm an addict.
Hey, John.
I'm grateful to be here. My very first sponsor told me that if I stuck around long enough, I'd meet this guy, and I didn't know who he was, and I didn't know who he was going to be, but that I'd really like him. Somewhere along the process of this recovery, something happened, and it came about by working the steps. And out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of this guy, and I really like him. And the more I keep coming back and I stick around here and I do what my sponsor tells me to do and I do what you people tell me works, he keeps getting clearer and clearer. And I like him more. I was afraid when I first came around that Narcotics Anonymous was going to strip me of who I was and was going to take away what I wanted to be. And what I've realized is that it doesn't work that way, you know. Narcotics Anonymous gives me the tools I need to slowly become the type of man that just deserves the best out of life and that rewards the people around him with the best things in life. I initially came here because I didn't know how to live life without using drugs, and I keep coming back because I still don't know how to live life. I don't use today. I don't use drugs today. And it's been a few 24 hours, but I was working with a sponsee earlier this afternoon, and I said, you know, I always want to be a newcomer. If I can stay a newcomer, if I can stay teachable, if I can stay willing, if I can stay open-minded to learn and to continually grow in Narcotics Anonymous, then the sky is truly the limit. I get to see exactly everything that man that I'm supposed to meet has to offer. And I get to show my wife and my children that man. And I get to show you people that man. And some of you know him better than I do. And that's why I keep coming back, because I'm not ready to stop yet. I'm not comfortable where I'm at. I don't want to go back where I came from. And the only way for me to keep progressing forward is to keep coming back. And that's all I've got. Thanks for letting me share.
Hi, family. My name is Emma, and I'm an addict. Well, I stay here because I don't want to go back to the old stuff that I used to. You know, I was telling somebody that this, no matter how bad things seem to be, for me in recovery, I'm still afraid. Some days I wake up afraid that I'm going to wake up in the middle of that bed with all that paraphernalia in the bed with them walls that look like they was about to cave in on me, and think that all this been a dream. You know, I keep coming back for the simple fact is that I don't want to be standing out there on them corners trying to buy one more. I don't want them the 13, 14-year-old boys feeling on me and saying, I'll let you have a big one. You know, I keep coming back because I don't want to go to the agains. The things that I used to do, I don't want to do them again. I'm not worried about the yets that they talk about. It's those agains. Those agains had me sitting in the middle of my bed wishing that I was dead before I got here. I don't know about none of you. I used to sit in the middle of my bed and I hear with them birds in the morning chirping and telling me, you done fucked up again. You done did it again. You got to go to work in 30 minutes. And you done did it again. And I would sit there and I would cry. And I felt like I was choking, like I was drowning. But this hole was never getting filled. I don't want to feel that pain again. Because before coming into here, I wanted to die. That was an option to me. Since I've been here, this has been a life that even the bad days, no matter how hopeless and helpless I think I'm feeling. See, my disease want me to think that. Like the brother said, I keep coming back because y'all tell me it gets better. I came back the first time I kept coming back is because the chairperson was looking good. I'm being honest. It was a good looking man sitting behind the chair, and I walked in the rooms for the first time. He walked up to me, he said, "What's your name?" I said, "Emma." He put his arms around me and hugged me, and he smiled. And for you ladies, you know what that means. It's on. You know, and that's what I thought. And I kept going back to that meeting every Monday. I was there just for that hug, you know, until I realized that I no longer desired to look at that brother anymore. I kept coming back for me. Because I realized I had 30 days clean, you know, and that was a gift. And when I got that year clean, that was a miracle, you know. And I keep coming back because I don't want to lose my clean time. Anybody tell you clean time don't mean nothing, lose it. You know, they ain't got that much, you right? They ain't got none. I mean, but that's it. You know, I keep coming back because I don't want to go back. That's why I stay here. I stay here because I know it's better here, and I stay here because I know if I come in here and I tell you about the things that I try to hide, because I suffer from this disease that wants me to hide stuff from you, and every now and then I get a moment of clarity and that something slip out, and then y'all done heard it, and when I'm trying to hide it from you, y'all say, you told me such and such. I know better, you know, so I keep coming back because I want you to know me, so I want you to pull me up on my stuff. It's this one sister I've been following around. She'll tell you I don't talk to her ears off this weekend. You know, because see, I want women to know me today, because I was that addict that shied away from women. I want you to know who I am, because see, my thing was to follow the men because I could manipulate them. But today, I ain't trying to manipulate nobody, because see, who I manipulated most was me. My name is Emma. Thanks for letting me share. And I keep coming back.
Hi family, I'm Carla, I'm an addict.
Hey, Carla.
I'm real grateful to be here. Grateful to be anywhere clean. What got me here was the same thing that got everybody else here. You know, I just use too much dope. But what keeps me here, other than just not wanting to use, is being around here clean for a few 24 hours and developing an obsession and compulsion for something that has nothing to do with drugs or cookies. You know, or lust or none of that. You know, this disease is so cunning and baffling, insidious and stuff. I never had an interest in this thing. I never knew much about it. I was introduced to it. I'm going to say what it is in a minute. People who know me know what it is. And I was hooked. And it's casino gambling, riverboat gambling. And a lot of times, I hate talking about that, you know, because I feel like, I feel less than, you know, when I talk about that. But almost every time I talk about it, somebody in that room say, you know, I do that too. You know, and then I ask myself, why do you want to be so undercover with that, you know? Because it feels so close to using dope. You know, the shame, the guilt, the remorse, the just the same thing. You know, the getting paid on one day and being broke the next. That's the same shit I was doing when I was using drugs. You know, I was sharing last night how I was in a casino and I lost my money. That's what they designed to do. They designed to take your money from you, you know. And I didn't just go in one day just like with the drugs and say, I didn't just wake up one morning and smoke a joint and say, I'm going to be a dope fiend. I didn't just go in and say, I want to be hooked to to gambling. They have it set up real nice and pretty where you get this little celebration, you know, it's like the bell ringer, and it's that first hit that I've chased for many, many years when using drugs. It's real similar to me. But the feelings are the same, you know, and I don't know, sometimes I just really hate talking about it. I was sitting in that chair and I was glued to that chair and I was like this every time, you know, somebody would get through sharing, and I know I need to talk about this, you know. I know that I want to continue to be the person that I was growing to be, you know, and the obsession and compulsion with anything in my life can cause me to let that person slip away, you know. I want to continue to be a productive member of society, you know, a responsible member of society. I want to continue to be a good parent and a good employee and a good daughter and all of that. And it's hard to be that when I'm dealing with any type of addiction, but I can only focus on this one because chocolate cakes haven't caused me the need to borrow $1,000 from my father to catch my bills up. So to me, it's kind of different, you know, and I don't know, it's real messy. But and they have a fellowship for people who have that problem too, and I was making meetings there, and then I was like, those people, they're so judgmental, you know. They're telling me that this isn't a money problem, this is what they say was a psychological problem. What do they know about psychology? I'm never going back there, you know. Same way I did in there, same way. And I continue to suffer in that area, you know, and I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I know that I have to do the same things that I did at 30 days. I have to do that now, you know, to process anything in my life, you know. I'm not one of those people that have a situation and will talk about it and turn it over and take the steps necessary and then let it be all right. I struggle with, you know, I even though control is impossible the moment it is suggested, I still want to control this particular situation the same way I did the drugs. Rationalize the situation, you know, the same way I did the drugs. And I've really been trying to make a decision that you need to talk about this. Well, that's my sponsor tells me you need to continue to talk about it, you know, do what you got to do, All she can do is tell me what I already know anyway. But it's up to me to do the footwork, which is why I decided I needed to get my bottom out of that chair, you know. And I have to continue to talk about it, you know, because I was sharing with a member, I said, you know, I'm tired of these same issues. I need some new issues. And and I think, you know, people are tired of hearing about that. And then I had this master plan. I would make meetings in places where nobody knows me. I'll be like the mystery addict, and then that way I'll share it here and share it there, and you know, I'm sharing about it. But the problem with that, nobody gets to know me, you know. Nobody will know that on Friday night it might be a good idea to call Carla and invite her to a meeting, you know. So it's real important that I continue to do what I did initially. Make the same means talk about it. Let people, you know, get to know where I am with this. And I'm real grateful to be here this weekend because I'm not gambling this weekend. I feel teary-eyed. Ooh. And I'm doing the mommy bonding, baby bonding thing. This is the first three consecutive days in a row I've ever been with my baby totally by myself. She has brothers and sisters, and they, whether they like it or not, if I say fix her a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, they have to do it. So I've had to be totally pretty much responsible in that. Boy, this has been a lesson, you know, for me. With all my other children, I've always had a lot of help because I was helpless at that time, you know, when they were babies and stuff. So, you know, I'm really just appreciating and enjoying the this weekend, despite it all, the rain, the bad weather, and the feelings that I've been stuffing, I've been doing a lot of listening and a lot of learning, you know, and that's just real important for me. Sometimes I think, well, no matter what, any clean day is a successful day. That's what but you know, that doesn't always work for me. It's not a successful day when my bills are 3 months behind. After I worked so hard to make financial amends and live within a budget, and you know, all this stuff was a struggle for me. So to me, it's not successful. No, I didn't use, but I'm still feeling like shit. You know, just a lot of areas that are in direct relation to this gambling really keep me torn up inside, you know, keep my insides in knots, you know, and I want to stop gambling. And I haven't said that, you know, because I think that, see, my thinking says, but if you get the right one, you can save yourself. And that's ridiculous. I mean, I know it's ridiculous. But of my own thought, you know, my own thought pattern, I can make that sound real realistic, and it's really so stupid when if I don't pick up, in other words, if I don't go to the riverboat, I won't give any money away, and I will use that money to do what I'm supposed to do, you know. My aunt used to say this. She died in her active addiction. She was addicted to the liquid drug, but she used to always say, life's a frame-up, then you die. And sometimes, you know, I just really think, man, she never lied, you know, I'm really being framed. But, you know, I set myself up. You know, I set myself up, and I just want to, you know, exercise the faith that I say that I have in my higher power, you know, and really let go and really let God, you know, because that's with the drugs, that's about where I am now, you know. I have to put this in God's hand, you know. There's nothing that I, Carla, can do but make a bigger mess of a situation that's pretty messy right now. Anyway, I'm real grateful to be here, and thanks for letting me share.
Three minutes, I was told. I'm grateful for recovering addict, and I'm that. And, you know, God got me here. That's truly how I got here. You know, it took me a while. But, man, what keeps me here is the freedom. The freedom I've gained from this program. You know, and it's not just the freedom from active addiction, it's the freedom from my own prison. Self-made prison, you know. And, you know, the relationships I've got with my higher power and myself and the people in the program, my sponsor, my sponsees, you know, that's what life's about, you know. I thought it was all about me, you know, the lies I told myself, you know, the things I made myself believe, you know, and man, I'm so grateful for this program. You know, I'm here by the grace of God, and you know, the people I've met, you know, one addict helping another is without parallel. It's amazing how this program works, you know. I just got a lot of gratitude, a lot of love for people in here, you know. We have one thing in common, that's addiction. We have another thing in common, we're trying to do something about it. You know, and it's powerful. Wherever you go, it doesn't matter where you go, you know. And that's what's really neat about it. You know, I go to Texas every Christmas. You know, the first year I couldn't make it to meetings because I didn't have a license, you know. And I ended up going back out. you know. And this year I went down there and I made sure I made meetings, you know. I made sure of it, you know, and I made a couple meetings a day. And my brother-in-law and I passed on the way to a meeting. He asked me, "Where are you going?" And I told him I'm going to a meeting. He asked me, "What do you live there?" And I said, "Well, you know, if I want to live, yeah, I have to go, you know." And I enjoy going, you know. I can never pay back what NA has given me, you know. When I came to the doors, 7/19/98, you know, there was somebody there with an open arm and gave me a Just for Today book, you know. And, you know, I want to be there for the newcomer, you know. For a while I was on a mission to save them all, you know. But, you know, today I have some balance in my life, you know, and I can ask for help, something I've never been able to do. And for the newcomers, you are the most important people, you know, because we can only keep what we have by giving it away, you know. The only advice I got is just keep coming back, because when I got here, I didn't want to be here, you know. It was only through coming back, and I kept coming back, I saw some hope, you know. And I don't want to go back to that hell I lived in, you know, at any price. It's not worth it. It's too much work, you know. And the pain, you know, I felt more pain since I've been in recovery, you know, than I ever did, because I didn't have to hide it, you know, and I was able to work through it with people, you know, asking for help. And it's amazing, you know, you go through something and it's like, wow, I didn't use, you know, all these miracles in here. Man, every day it's a new adventure, because I've never been there, you know, and it's pretty exciting. And I'll pass with that. My name is Matt.
Would you like to help me close this with a group hug?